Welcome back on the AM show. Mapitso, Benjamin, we're here and ready to go. We're about to serve them the newspapers, right?
We
and
are.
what they're saying.
But you know that it's a 3-host show. So
yes.
It's Mapitso Sebidi, Benjamin Akakpo, and Bernice Abubedu-Lansa.
Yeah, they'll be seeing Bernice. They know the drill. Bernice will be coming in later when we bring in the big stories. But definitely a lot of big stories from the papers this morning. But like I always like doing, I like to find out. So we had the GJA Awards, and then we also had quite a situation. We've heard that fuel prices are set to go down. Others say it's going to stabilize and all of that. What's your situation like when you purchased fuel? Did you purchase fuel over the weekend?
I did. So 800 cedis lasted me a week and a half.
A week and a half?
Yes, and that's...
Are you using a 1.6 litre engine?
Yes, but this is why.
Okay, I'm surprised.
I was going home, work, gym. I wasn't going to any other places. So it was work, home, and the gym was only like 3 times a week.
Okay.
And because I live so close to the office, it wasn't really, strenuous. And
that
also,
explains it.
I wasn't, because I come to work at dawn, I don't switch on my AC. I only use my AC when I'm going to the house, which is like 10, 15 minutes max journey. So that is why it lasted so long.
So here's what I'm picking.
Yeah.
You're rationing stuff.
Yes.
You're rationing your AC. And I do it unashamedly. Unashamedly. You know, sometimes when I'm in there, and sometimes because of the time I'm leaving, it's blazing hot.
Yeah.
You know, so you turn it on, not full throttle, maybe to 2. It chills for a while, then Charlie, I either turn to 1 or switch off. So
I was talking to Mbora about that, one of our colleagues, right? And he does the drive safe. What was it?
Drive safe.
Drive safe. Yeah, he does the drive safe, and he's speaking to some, engineers and car dealers and whatnot, and people who know about this transport thing and car thing. And he was saying that this whole thing of like what you're doing, put your AC on 2, put it on 1, and switch it off. It takes even more power or more fuel because
every time you turn it on,
it has to, pump up.
But I just switch from 2 to 1. You can't also lose sight of the fact that when it's on 4 or 3, it's consuming more energy than when it's on 2. Definitely. Turning it on or off, yes, I agree with that. But switching from a higher to a lower, it's okay.
It's okay.
But let me find out whether maybe Suleiman Abrahima, Executive Director, Media Foundation for West Africa, is doing same, since now we're all not ball watching, we're needle watching.
Yeah.
Where's my fuel gauge?
What's happening? What's going on?
I think nowadays when we meet, we should do this. Everybody will understand. Mr. Abrahima, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Ben.
Good morning, Mr. Abrahima.
Good morning, Mapitso, is that right?
Maps.
Maps will do.
That makes it so easy.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. So I was trying to find out, Mr. Abrahima, whether you've fallen prey to that temptation as well, to watch the needle of your fuel gauge, and also if you try to regulate your AC so that you can conserve energy. Just quickly on a lighter note, and then we'll get into the papers.
Well, at this stage, we all have to do. To be honest, I really hardly put on my air conditioner because really it's tough. We're talking about, almost like 20 cedis per liter. And certainly that is not an easy thing to endure. Quite often I would leave a bit earlier, which makes the weather okay to drive without the air condition. And coming back home a bit late is also sometimes better, unless for one reason or the other, maybe I have to make a call and I need the surroundings to be a bit quiet. That's the only time perhaps I would put on my air conditioner. As you know, at this stage, really, we can't air condition. So.
Okay, that's an interesting note on which to start. Ohiampe air condition because. Okay, you will leave it there. Let's get into the papers, Mapitso.
Let's get into the papers, and I'll start with Daily Graphic. And the big story is that, so as we know that we had the Ghana Journalists Association Awards over the weekend, and rise above partisanship, the NMC chair charges media. So the chairman of the National Media Commission, Yao Boedu, has urged the media to rise above partisanship. been a long weekend. And collectively fight national causes to remain impactful and serve their purpose in society. He said it is time for journalists to fight for systems and institutions to work effectively instead of blaming governments and regimes. Mr. Brady gave the advice at the 26th award ceremony of the Ghana Journalists Association. He also said that journalists were recognized and appreciated, not because they were more human than others, but because they were supposed to be the voice of the voiceless and fight for those who had no means of fighting. He said, and I quote, "Journalists are therefore expected to use this unique role to tackle a national failure and not a regime. We have to look at issues from a national perspective and not through a partisan lens." He also spoke about Ahmed Swaleh, and he said, "Whoever killed the journalist Ahmed Swaleh does not deserve to walk about freely or live, but there are many other victims whose families also deserve justice but have had no voice to make that call." There has not been a headway in unraveling the gruesome murder of Swaleh and also Samuel Enin, the former Ashanti Regional Chairman of the GGA, who was murdered in 2007. We also have position yourselves to benefit from the 20 billion climate fund. That's according to Jinapo, who's telling developing countries. And we also have venture capital supports SMEs with 1.5 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Brahma, let's talk about the advice from the NMC chair charges. Okay, he's working on his Zoom. We'll get to him. But we also know that the Bank of Ghana denies financing government 70 billion Ghana cedis. Benjamin, rise above partisanship. Yeah. I
don't think anyone in this country who wishes well for our country should even be told that.
Yeah.
We don't need to be told that. I think it is a great point that anyone who is patriotic should rise above citizenship.
Yeah.
But at the same time, citizenship, we ought to find out what kind, what ilk, what type of citizenship we're looking at. Because, Mr. President said, for example, at his inauguration, don't be spectators, be citizens. Yet there are things that have been done where people felt they were being citizens and they've been victimized.
Yeah.
So what kind of citizenship exactly are we calling for? And I do agree with the general thought that we should rise above politics and be citizens. But we also can't lose sight of the fact that our politics is so ingrained. Okay? That, like some people will say, even if you picked a donkey or a goat and put some party colors around their necks, people would vote for those goats and donkeys. That's pathetic where we've got to, and we ought to be able to rise above that. But I must say that in the Fourth Republic, if you look at the inception of the Fourth Republic and where we've come to and how people think and the voting patterns and voting skirt and blouse and all of that, you'd realize that we are slowly but surely getting there, and that's a very positive step.
All right, let's also do some other stories. Let's go to page 13. 18 million people do not have access to hand washing facilities. During COVID, the main thing was that you have to wash your hands under running water with soap. And 18 million people do not have access to hand washing facilities. And you look at it and like, okay, you know what? It's a good thing that COVID didn't hit us like it did with other countries because we don't have the facilities. But this represents about 58% of households in the country. That's according to UNICEF Ghana. To achieve universal access to hand washing facilities by 2030, UNICEF said more than 11,365 hand washing facilities were needed on a weekly basis. 18 million people. Benjamin, do you have any thoughts on that?
This feeds into the sanitation situation. We've had some of these wash institutions in the country for a long time. We know about the problem we have with open defecation.
Yeah.
We know about the problem we have with lots of homes not having toilets, facilities and all of that. At this point, I really don't know. Our system is broken. And if you look at what we spend every year on open defecation, if you look at the gap when it comes to water resources, potable water and the rest, you just ask yourself when exactly we're going to sit up and tackle these issues. And, well, maybe it's also definitely at the doorstep of the Minister for Sanitation and Water Resources, Cecilia Abna Dapa. There's more that can be done in that direction. Oh, and speaking of which, you remember the promise that Accra would be the cleanest city in Africa?
Yeah.
It's under her. Was it sometime last year
Who
or 2
made the
years
promise
ago?
again?
Who did what?
Who made the promise?
Oh, Mr. President.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo.
Oh, okay.
The last time I checked, I even brought it up in my blunt thoughts for Friday. Last time I checked, Accra wasn't even in the top 10 of the cleanest cities in Africa. Not even in the top 10. I mean, Kumasi does better in some of the lists. You would see the Garden City, Kumasi popping up. But Accra, I'm yet to see Accra. I'm still looking for Accra.
Okay. But he said at the end of his term.
That was the first term.
Okay. Did he say first term? He didn't say first term. He said at the end of
If
of
I
my
recall.
Okay.
The suggestion was
So
within that
first term,
he would do it. Now we're 6 years into it.
Okay. I was trying to,
don't mitigate. Don't control.
Because his second term is not over. So I was trying to say that, at least second term is not over, so we can see Accra being the cleanest city in
I mean, it would be a good thing to see. It would be a good thing. You go to some parts of Accra and your heart will bleed.
Chale, and I always go back to attitude. Attitude is like, it's terrible. You'll see someone in a Trotsky will eat the yogurt, bowl fruit. When they're done, they just throw it out of the window. And then tomorrow, that same person will be, complaining that, my thing is flooded, or around my house is flooded, the area in my, in my neighborhood or whatever.
You make a very important point. Look at our beaches.
Yeah.
Look at our beaches. The filth
it's terrible.
Around some of them. You even go to Labadi, the main beach, and sometimes you have to avoid so many things. When I went to Lomé recently, usually when you go through the border and you're going the stretch of beach, it's always pretty neat. But I think maybe, and that's why I feel our leaders are not stern enough, because no one ever develops a country with a very wishy-washy attitude. In Singapore, when they started with Lee Kuan Yew, and people can have whatever they want to think or say about Lee Kuan Yew, but if you did some things, right, you would get flogged. They would catch you and deal with you. I think, look, sometimes that's simply the way to go. You create it's a paradigm shift, and those who now come up will come to live it out, and that's how you create a different system.
Yeah.
But with the same old people doing the same old things, you'll get the same old results.
Same old results. Mr. Brimer, do we have Mr. Brimer?
Yes.
All right, so rise above partisanship, and that's according to the chairman of the National Media Commission. He has urged the media to rise above partisanship and collectively fight national causes to remain impactful and serve their purpose in society. Your thoughts on that?
Well, let me start by saying that it was certainly a great event. Congratulations to the GJA for organizing the event. And of course, even much more congratulations to our colleague journalists who picked up awards at the event. Certainly, our country needs a great journalism now than ever before, given the circumstances that we are in. And I do agree with the GJA the NMC chairman, that we certainly have to move above partisanship and do the kind of journalism that our constitution envisaged that we would do, which is to hold duty bearers accountable. It's also important to therefore emphasize that at any point in time, we have a government in place, and that government has to at all times be held accountable. And I don't want to believe that holding the government accountable would amount to an act of partisanship, because I think sometimes it's difficult to understand what people's perspectives are. The people who say, well, journalism must do great work are the same people sometimes who say, oh, if you are taking on the government too much, you need to focus on both sides. But at all times, we have one government in place, and that government must be held accountable to the people of Ghana as mandated by the Constitution. So yes, we have to move about partisanship, but we have to continue to play that cardinal role of holding the government of the day accountable, of course, while not overlooking any excesses on the part of the opposition and other actors within our society.
Yeah. Ben?
Let me get into other papers now. And the Ghanaian Times newspaper It has quite a number of stories. Starts with Portia Gabor receiving her award from Ms. Obushi Sai Kofi. Portia Gabor named 2021 Journalist of the Year. There's also CRI, that is Child Rights International, drags 3 teacher unions to court over strike. Then there's a GJA Awards night tied to that. Support economic recovery plans. President tasks journalists. And then Jinaport John Kerry co-chair first ministerial meeting of Forest Climate Leaders Partnership. And then 3 Chinese grabbed for allegedly murdering man at mining site. Let me start with the call on journalists. Let me start from there. So media practitioners in the country have been urged to work with government towards alleviating the current economic challenges that threaten the livelihoods of Ghanaians. According to President Akufo-Addo, the current economic situation required the involvement of all stakeholders to ensure interventions introduced by government to restore economic recovery become successful. To this end, he reiterated the government's commitment to promoting press freedom to enable journalists to play their critical role as gatekeepers of society. He also added, quote, "All hands must be on deck to battle economic challenges that threaten our livelihood. The media, which is a critical arm of our democracy, has a crucial role in supporting efforts to restore economic normalcy." That's what Akufo-Addo said. Of course, we all should know that tied to that, Portia Gabor of TV3 in Accra has been adjudged Journalist of the Year 2021 at this year's Ghana Journalists Association Awards. She was also named the best in television news reporting and best in health reporting. The event, which was held on Saturday with the theme Walking the Path Towards Ghana's Economic Recovery, the Role of the Media, also saw Emmanuel Karanting, we all call him Manuel, of Joy News, and Francisca Enchel of Joy Prime, or freelancer as well, winning Most Promising Journalist and Female Journalist of the Year, respectively. In fact, a number of our colleagues also bagged awards. We bagged 8 of them. And a friend of mine, Ridwan Karim Osman of EIB Network, won Best in News Reporting on Radio, while Peggy Amadonko took home the Best in Features for TV. But what's your quick reaction to the president's call? And some have said that our own media practice or media freedoms are a bit suspect right now. What's your understanding of the situation, Mr. Brima?
Well, we hear the president, and it's a good call. Of course, we all know that we are in crisis now, and every stakeholder, every institution has a role to play. It's quite sad that we are in this, and the president is refusing to listen to all actors within our society who have said, look, it's time for you to take certain actions, such as reduce the size of your government. The finance minister has performed abysmally and must be removed. Realign certain policies that have proven to be a waste in the system. Cut down on the number of specialized agencies that have been set up that basically are fleecing the state in terms of our resources and all of that. The president is listening to none of that and is not taking any action. So far, in the midst of all this crisis, the president has not taken any action that suggests, or is related to a leader who wants to adopt any mitigation measures. So we listen, or we hear him on the issue of economic crisis, which we all know. And I believe that we are suffering more than he is because our taxes is taking care of him in a luxurious manner. And so, it's we who are the ones who are suffering. And he must begin to listen to us. Talking about press freedom, yes, it's one thing saying that, look, the press must be free, we support press freedom and all of that. And another thing, really taking action. The Swallow incident, for example. What has been the commitment of the government so far? Any serious government would have been pushing to ensure that the investigative bodies are doing what they have to do. So far, it's been quiet. It's a matter that very soon we may be filing a case at the ECOWAS court against the government of Ghana, because elsewhere in the region, the ECOWAS court has made decisions against certain governments that have basically played aloof on matters like this. And so we hear the president, but we need to see a lot of action than words.
I think sometimes perception feeds into it a lot. Very quickly, Mr. Brima, because you know what, Mapitso and Mr. Brima, throughout all my years of media practice, I've never had people as concerned about me okay, asking, hey, this thing you're doing, and blah, blah, blah. Are you okay? Are you safe? My priests ask me, are you safe? Are you getting any threats? Are you this and that? And I've never, in the course of all the time I have done media, had people focus on me and ask, are you safe? And that also feeds into what then they are thinking about the system. Yeah. do you get it?
Yeah.
I've never had a chunk of people, practically every week. My own mom often is asking, are you safe? Are you okay? So this whole Ahmed Hussein Swale situation, it's bigger than when we leave these matters unresolved. It's far bigger. It's far bigger. I don't know whether you have any quick reactions to that, Mr. Brima.
No, absolutely. We are certainly in times that journalist safety is really at stake. And what you're experiencing, you are not alone. We all go through that. You know, parents calling you to say you need to be careful. The system is not too good. Please, you are not the only one who built Ghana. And sometimes you have to be quiet over certain issues. It's real. And I, given the work that I do, I have had several journalists calling me either a story that they are pursuing that they've been compelled to drop, or a story that they are doing that they feel their safety could be compromised, or seeking an opinion whether they should go on with this because they don't feel so safe. It's real, and for me, that is what was reflected in our ranking. The last time the ranking was done, dropping from the 30th position in the world to the 60th, and from the 3rd to the 10th in Africa. I think that when it comes to press freedom, over the last 2 decades or so, this government appears to be the worst. They talk the most, but they act the least.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, so let's do the story. CRI drags 3 teacher unions to court over strike, and a civil society organization, Child Rights International, has dragged 3 teacher unions to the Supreme Court over an industrial action. It is making a case that the strike by the 3 unions is unconstitutional and a violation of the rights of students to education as enshrined in Articles 25, 28, as well of the 1992 Constitution. Let's get into some other stories.
All right, let's go to Republic Press and bishops mad at government. We also have the EC warns the PNC to resolve internal wrangling or face permanent suspension. And on page 8, reduce the number of convoys, that is the Catholic bishops to President Akufo-Addo. Still on page 8, 14,000 Ghanaians die of HIV/AIDS annually. Page 3, AICC makes a U-turn over Anas Galamsey video. But let's get to the big story where the bishops are mad at the government, and they say that the Catholic Bishops' Conference has taken a swipe at the government and the various security agencies of alleged widespread nepotism and corruption in the country, especially during the recruitment process of the agencies. According to Most Reverend Philip Name, who doubles as the Metropolitan Archbishop of Tamale, the various security agencies are now replete with corrupt tendencies to the extent that many qualified Ghanaians can no longer be recruited on their merits without relying on the benevolence of those in power. So that is the big story. But we also have reduced the number of convoys, the Catholic bishops to President Akufo-Addo. I mean, we've also heard various institutions saying that the
Christian Council of Ghana, for example, has had its own take on some of these issues, including Galamsey, among others.
Including the size of the government. And the Ghana Catholic Bishops' Conference has asked the government to cut down on economic costs by reducing the leadership of state-owned enterprises. The size of government and leadership of state-owned enterprises should be significantly reduced. One strong signal that will indicate leadership is committed to burden sharing is by reducing the size of presidential convoys. The conference also called for an aggressive approach to the recommendations of the Auditor General, as often captured in his reports every year. So the bishops are mad at government. They say that first, there is corruption, nepotism, and third, they want President Akufo-Addo to reduce the size of his government, and also reduce the number of convoys. We also have 14,000 Ghanaians die of HIV/AIDS annually on page 8. Take a quick look at that. The three bodies, Ghana HIV and AIDS Network of persons living with HIV, and the civil society organizations and health, have made this appeal that, according to the group, this has become necessary because the Global Fund, which has been the single largest donor of the national HIV and AIDS response since 2002, have threatened to cut back on their support. So basically, they're calling for support and for funds for them to continue doing their work, because they say that 14,000 Ghanaians die of HIV/AIDS annually, and these 14,000 are the 14,000 that we are aware of, the ones that have gone to test, the ones that are getting their medication, or some are testing but have decided not to take their ARVs. Mr. Brahma, quickly, bishops mad at government and also reduce the number of convoys. That's according to that's what the Catholic bishops are asking President Akufo-Addo. Thoughts?
Well, so far, a lot of calls. Civil society organizations have spoken. The president has refused to listen. Members in the opposition in parliament have spoken. The president has refused to listen. His own members of parliament have spoken. He has refused to listen. Trade Union Congress has spoken. He's refusing. Now the Catholic Bishops' Conference has spoken. I can only hope that, given that we had a president who was more committed to building a cathedral than dealing with the crisis faced by our children who are studying under trees, studying without chairs and all of that, he would consider the voice of the Catholic bishops as the voice of God. And even as the building of the cathedral is in limbo, at least he will listen to the voice of God, which has been passed on through the Catholic Bishops' Conference. So let's pray. Let's all pray that at least the voice of God through the Catholic Bishops' Conference would this time touch our president to act in line with the crisis that we are in. Otherwise, I think that the president's inaction is even more a crisis than the economic turbulence that we face. So let's all pray that our president would, going forward, listen, so that at least our situation can be improved a little bit better.
All right. Also, on a somewhat lighter note, talking about the economic hardship, you and I are feeling the pinch. I'm sure, Mr. Brahma, you're also feeling the pinch. But someone who says they're not feeling the pinch is gospel musician Dinah Asamoah. She says that she's not feeling the pinch. In an interview with Sammy K, the gospel musician indicated that she has only heard of the cries of hardship by many Ghanaians in the country, but she has not experienced it. She says that God is taking care of her, and if you trust in God, anything that is happening in the world will not touch you.
Well, Mapitso, good for her.
Good for her.
And we pray that her God keeps taking care of her. Maybe our God is different, maybe, but we pray that Diana Asamoah's God keeps taking care of her.
Amen.
Yeah.
What do you have?
Let me get into the Finder newspaper, and some of the stories have already, in fact, all of those on the front page have already been elaborated upon, so I'll skip them. Apart from, of course, EcoBank deepens financial literacy to drive inclusion. That story is on page 8. You can check it out. But quickly, Mr. Brahma, 25 billion Ghana cedis used to finance government's debt, not 70 billion Ghana cedis. You remember the Bolga Central MP Isaac Adongo brought up this issue. The Bank of Ghana's governor is saying it was 25 billion Ghana cedis used and not 70 billion. There's also General Legal Counsel to withdraw the accreditation of some schools offering LLB courses. And the Chief Justice, Kwesi Anene-Yeboah, says the General Legal Counsel will soon withdraw the recognition of some institutions offering LLB programs to sanitize, because the word that is used here, sanctify, is a bit the legal profession. And this is because the institutions lacked lecturers, lecture rooms, and libraries. He was speaking at the enrollment of 846 newly qualified lawyers on Friday at the Accra International Conference Center. Then 2 more stories to add, so you can choose which ones to reflect on. Policeman who freed convict in exchange for trip abroad, jailed 12 years. I'm sure you followed that story. And an Accra Circuit Court, has sentenced the police officer to 12 years imprisonment for assisting ex-convict Harold Davis Johnson to travel abroad without serving his jail term at the Nsawam prisons. And finally, I want you to react to this one. Patrons elated about affordable foodstuff prices at pilot planting for food and jobs market. We went on the field. We had some people saying, your prices are even more expensive than in other markets. But others also said, no, this is good to go. Mm-hmm. Some have asked about sustainability. And I just want to add this point. I think it was under one administration, I think it was the Rawlings administration, part one, when they had a similar enterprise. It took 2 weeks and they stopped. They folded up. So some have asked about the practicality of this. Quick reactions, Suleimana.
No, I think this sale of food at the Agric ministry or by the Agric ministry is the clearest evidence of the failure of that ministry and that minister. I've always made the point that one of the major failures under the Akufo-Addo regime has been in the Agric sector. And I mean, it's also significantly been the sector that has gotten a lot of money allocated, and whether the monies were actually being used for whatever they were intended is something that we can all later discuss. But Agric has been the one area that we failed, because if the Agric sector was doing well, whether COVID-19 or Russia, Ukraine, or the Queen's death or whatever it is, I'm sure food prices wouldn't have been going the way they've gone. And to say that you want to prove that food can be sold at a cheaper price by bringing food from whatever, look, the reality is that how much is being paid for transport by the ministry? Is the transport seeking, the ministry seeking to make profit? So if I were to go and buy plantain as a trader from Kumasi or from Tepa or Goso, and then bring it to Accra, you expect that if I bought it at 20 cedis, I should sell it at 20 cedis? No, because I'm into business, and maybe I'll sell it at 22 cedis or 24 cedis. But the ministry's action, which for me is pure propaganda, the ministry can buy food there at 20 cedis, bring it here to sell it at even the same 20 cedis or even less. Now, if this is the policy of the government, are we going to see the Ministry of Fisheries also beginning to sell fish at the ministry? And are we going to see the other ministries doing the same? The Ministry of Trade beginning to import stuff so that we go there to get what we need. It's just a clear evidence of failure on the part of government and these individual ministries. And so the earlier we do the right things, the better than all these gimmicks.
Let me just sneak this by you in some 20 seconds, if you may. The Minister for Works and Housing, Francis Asenso-Boakye, is saying that government is exploring the possibility of selling the Saglemi housing project, covering the 1,506 housing units, to a private sector entity to complete and sell at no further cost to the state. He notes that the proceeds from the sale will come to the state and be reinvested into government's affordable housing program. I passed by that stretch just about 3 weeks ago. And again, I felt a pinch, when I passed by that stretch. Here we are saying we want to give to a private developer, complete it, sell it, we'll get our share, or we'll get whatever, and then we'll reinvest it into affordable housing. Affordable housing has never worked in this country. Quick take?
Well, it's politics as usual. I am wondering why they have had to, close to 6 years, those units have been sitting there, getting rotten. Yes, I know they say they are prosecuting a former minister over whatever it is, but I doubt that prevented us from acting to put those houses into use. So going forward, I just hope that, for me, the most important thing is that, look, so much money has been pumped into that facility, and allowing it to rot for the sake of politics is certainly not something that is good for our country. The whole culture of abandoning projects that were started by previous governments is something that is quite depressing. As recently, if you remember, we did a national report looking at these facilities, and the report was titled "Billions in the Bush," and it's something that appears a dent on our national conscience. And I don't know why and when we would have a leader who would try to do the right thing and move above these pettiness.
All right, then, Mr. Suleiman Ibrahima, thank you so much for your time. It's always a pleasure doing this with you. Benjamin, some exciting things happened in the world of sports over the weekend.
Well, talking of excitement, what I heard wasn't so exciting. Do you know our first 2 goalkeepers for the Black Stars
Okay, well,
are injured?
in Ghana, yeah, it's never exciting in the world of sports.
What are you saying?
You people are just joking with the sports. Yeah.
How are we joking with the sports?
Yeah.
But anyway, so Jojo Wallacott
Yeah.
has a finger injury, a fracture of sorts. There's also the second goalkeeper, Ofori, who has an issue. And now we hear that the Asante Kotoko, goalie actually had to quickly find himself in Abu Dhabi, if you like. But there's also that issue about Cristiano Ronaldo and Ten Hag. Apparently, there has been quite a tussle. Ten Hag, the Manchester United manager, has not played him often. And apparently there's talk about some disrespect going on from the player to the manager. All of that coming up in Sports. Do stay. It's Prime Take with Anthony Baffo.